men who are committed. First thing that a few good men can do is to show us what it means to be a man who cares. Second thing is showing us how a few good men can be men who show us how to be committed. In verse 4 of our lesson, we see the tremendous commitment that these men portray in a dramatic way. Verse 4 of our lesson declares, since they could not get him to Jesus because of the crowd, they made an opening in the roof above Jesus, and after digging through it, lowered the mat the paralyzed man was laying on. According to our lesson, when these men arrived at Peter's house, they saw so many people that they were not even able to enter. The house was filled beyond capacity, and all the doorways were blocked. However, these men were so committed to the paralyzed man's cause that they were determined to get him to Jesus. And they literally tore a hole in Peter's roof and lowered the man down so that he could get to Jesus. These 4 men did everything that they could to get this man to Jesus. They picked him up, they carried him, and most likely they traveled a good distance. And when they arrived at their destination and saw the crowd, they still did not quit. They did not say, sorry, my brother, we did our best. They did not console themselves by thinking, we did more than most people would have done in this situation. Our lesson states that they went up on the roof and tore a hole in it in order to get the man to Jesus so that the man could be healed, delivered, and set free. The fact of the matter is, beloved, our commitment is evaluated not when the path is clear, but rather our commitment is always tested, and finally it is proven when we meet a roadblock, a detour, a twist, or a turn that is hard to maneuver, or a fork in the road. It is at these junctions in life where we are challenged to continue on, or we can be tempted with the idea of giving up, turning around, and going back. These are the places where our commitment is best displayed. Let me say it to you this way. Anybody can talk a good game. However, what's your game really like? Can you stay on the court? Can you keep on trying? Can you keep on pushing? Not because you're winning, but because you're losing. And because God didn't make you a quitter. God made you determined to hold on. Keep on pushing. Keep on trying. Keep on working until you hear not somebody's voice, but the Lord's voice saying, well done, thou good and faithful servant. Let me ask each of us a soul-searching question this morning. How committed are you to Jesus? How committed are you to helping others get to Jesus? Each of us this morning should take inventory of ourselves and ask, are we doing everything that we can do to get others to come to Christ? Are we inviting people to church? Are we bringing people to church? When was the last time the Lord personally used you to lead somebody to a saving knowledge of God through the work of Jesus Christ? Are we faithful sharing the good news of the gospel? When was the last time our commitment to Jesus motivated us to share our testimony? When was the last time our commitment to Jesus challenged our thinking and challenged our level of commitment to the degree that we stopped comparing ourselves to what others were doing or to what others had failed to do, and we simply did it because we knew that it would give God glory and give God praise? When was the last time you worked but they did not call your name? When was the last time you served, but you didn't have a position? When was the last time you served even though you didn't have a title? When was the last time you served even though they did not call your name? When was the last time that you stood firm, that you kept on excelling in the work of the Lord because you realize that your labor in the Lord is not in vain? How committed are you this morning? Are you willing to put your money where your mouth is? Are you committed to stand in the gap? Are you committed to help somebody that cannot even thank you? Are you committed to help somebody that cannot pay you back? Are you committed to give God glory and give God praise? If you are about the Lord's business, why don't you stand on your feet? Give God a shout out. Why don't you give him praise? Why don't you give God thanks? Glorify his name. Beloved, when we are committed to Christ, we will work just as hard and we will be just as faithful when there are 400 or 4,000 other people who are committed. Our lesson clearly illustrates that commitment is something that is not measured by those around us. It's measured by what God put in you. And if you're willing to be faithful over a few things, how many know that God will bless you and give you that much more? Is there anybody here this morning that you're glad that when I had nothing, I kept on giving God praise? When God gave me a little more, I kept on giving him glory. When God poured it down, pressed down and running over, I still gave God the praise and I still gave God the glory. Have I got a witness? Say yeah! Say yeah! Third and finally, we not only discovered from our lesson the fact that a few good men can make a difference when they are men who care, and that a few good men can make a difference when they are men who are willing to be committed. But we can also discover from our lesson the fact that a few good men can make a profound difference in life when we are determined and when we are willing to be used by God. And here it is, don't miss this, even when we are crippled. Don't miss this. The good news of our lesson is much more than simply a paralyzed man being healed so that he can walk on his own. The good news of our lesson is that God uses people who have been crippled by life to teach us how to help and how to walk together. One of the insights that most of us miss when we read this lesson is the significance of what Jesus says in verse 5. In verse 5 of our lesson, Jesus singles out not the 4 men who had done a good deed, but Jesus singles out the paralyzed man. And he says to him, son, your sins are forgiven. Let me pause here for a minute, because I'm not talking this morning to you if you have everything right, if you've never sinned, if you're perfect. However, I want to have a little discussion with you. If you're like me, if you messed up, if you've sinned, if you've fallen down, if you've fallen short, and if life every now and again can cripple you, I got good news for you this morning. God can use you not because of, but in spite of. God can use you in spite of the haters. God can use men who are paralyzed by our past, who are paralyzed by our haters, who are paralyzed by our fears, and who are even paralyzed by our lack of self-esteem. Nevertheless, God reminds us that God has not given given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. There are too many of our sons, too many of our daughters, too many of our fathers, too many of our mothers, too many of our sisters, too many of our brothers who are walking around broken, who are walking around crippled, who are walking around angry, who are walking around depressed, who are walking around high, who are walking around drunk, who are walking around like the night of the living dead. But God has a word for us this morning. Be still and know that I'm God. Have I got a witness? Is there any man here this morning? You're not ashamed to tell that when I was broken, when I was busted, and when I was disgusted, God met me. God kept me. God picked me up. God placed my feet on a solid rock. God gave me joy. And the joy that I had, this world didn't give to me. And this world